Hello and welcome to the Roy Rogers News Channel. Thank you so much for watching. And for today's PokeMMO fun-filled ability video, well, we're going to dive into a very useful ability, especially if you want to farm for Everstones via Geodude and Graveler or via Riggenrola, Boldore, and Gigalith. And what is that ability, you might ask? That's a good question. That ability is called Damp. And with me today to feature this ability is a certain baby that I picked up from the nursery. Awbaby, which I say hello to everybody.
Hello.
Hello. All right, there we go. And awbaby, are you ready to dive into this fun-filled ability?
Yes.
Excellent. All right, let's go ahead and dive into Damp right now. Now, you might be asking us, hey, Roy and Baby, what is Damp? And that's a good question. What Damp does is that it prevents the use of self-destructing moves. However, reactive gas can bypass this benefit, so don't use your Damp Pokemon when you're shiny hunting for coughing or wheezing, especially if they're at a high enough level where they can learn the exploding moves that the wheezing or the coughing can usually learn. Alright, so awbaby, do you have any commentary about Damp?
No, it's awesome.
And before I dive into the Damp video, I would like to make a brief prerequisite, and it'd be the fact that I don't plan on covering the pre-evolutions here in this video. I do plan to cover the evolutions because we have quite a bit of some Pokemon to dive into. So without further ado, I'm going to resume the tape, and we're going to go ahead and dive into Damp right now. And you might be asking me, hey Roy, so what's the very first Pokemon for Damp? That's a good question. And that's going to be Parasect. And before I go to the slide, I would like to just give a quick shout out to Jacob Berger for his excellent Parasect. Awbaby wanted me to feature this Pokemon before we go into the slide, so there's the Parasect there. So
Yay!
feel free to build it however you'd like to. Alright, so without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into Parasect right now. So you might be asking us, hey Roy and Baby, so what are the perks to Parasect? And that's a good question. Considering the fact that Parasect is a bug and grass egg group, I want to kind of concentrate on the bug egg group, because the bug egg group is actually really easy to get breeders for. So that's one of the perks for Parasect. And also, another benefit for Parasect is that Parasect can also sweet scent for you. So let's just say you want to do horde hunting, well, horde shiny hunting I should say, and then you can go ahead and do sweet scent and you can try to hunt that way and it'd be great. And another main perk for Parasect is that Parasect can hold leftovers, so that's certainly a plus. And also, it is the only Damp Pokemon that can learn Spore, so that's certainly something that you can benefit off of. Now you might be asking me, hey Roy, so what are the drawbacks of Parasect? And that's a good question. So the Damp ability for Parasect is actually a hidden ability. So it might be hard to get your breeding supplies of Paras and Parasect to breed for because Damp is a hidden ability, and hidden ability Pokemon are known to be just slightly more expensive than the regular breeders. And also I'd like to mention another drawback, and it'd be the fact that Parasect has a pretty low base 30 speed. So if you are going to be going shiny hunting with this Parasect, which if you build it the way how Jacob Berger did, then don't do this. But if you want to go shiny hunting with your Parasect, then here's what I would encourage you to do. Go ahead and let Parasect hold Choice Scarf, because Choice Scarf can allow for you to outrun certain Pokemon that are faster than you. Also, I would like to mention the fact that its typing is not really the greatest, considering the fact that it is quad weak to fire and quad weak to flying type Pokemon. I mean, Parasect is going to have a little bit of some trouble in terms of the hunts. So, awbaby, can I ask you a question? How hard of a time do you have fleeing certain wild Pokemon when you have Parasect in lead?
I haven't used them, I'm gonna be honest with you. If he's slow, then probably a hard time.
I see. Alright. Yeah, so there we go. So awbaby doesn't even use it, so that's so much of a drawback it has. So yeah, when you use the Parasect, make sure to be very careful. If you are going to put a Choice Scarf on it, then I feel like Thief would be a wasted opportunity. But if you're not going to have a Choice Scarf on it, then feel free to use Thief on it. But I should also note that since you're probably going to use this Parasect to farm Geodude or Graveler, and they have Self-Destruct or Explosion, you might want to have Parasect not hold the Choice Scarf if you're going to be farming stones. And I would like to note something that Geodude and Graveler can learn Rock-type moves, and Parasect is a Bug type, so Parasect is not really going to appreciate the Geodude or Graveler trying to hit the Parasect. So Make sure to be very careful when you use the Parasect, and make sure it's a Pokemon you absolutely want to use. But don't worry, in this video we are going to feature better options, but I just want to note this, Parasect does have those drawbacks. Now, I would like to note that not all is bad for Parasect. Parasect has a wonderful base attack stat of 95, that's certainly nice, and then also complement it with the fact that Parasect is the only Damp Pokemon, as time of this taping, that can learn False Swipe. So you can do the False Swipe Spore, although I would say Breloom is better at that job, but Parasect can certainly be sort of a compromise Pokemon between an excellent catcher and a damp Pokemon. Awbaby, do you have any commentary to say about Parasect before we move on?
It's cute.
Alright, there we go. Sure, Parasect appreciated that. Let's go and dive into the next Pokemon right now. And what is it? It is Golduck! Alright, and before we go into Golduck, well, we kind of had the idea to make an OT Awbaby Golduck there. But as of right now, it's a Psyduck, so I'd like to thank Awbaby for this wonderful OT. So thank you so much, Awbaby.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
You know, you might be wondering about Simple Beam. We could talk about that a little later. But also, you might be wondering about the EVs, which we can also talk about a little later. And as for Adamant, I want to make sure Thief can hit hard. But I can talk a bit more about that right now. Oh man, the name is a lie. Could you believe that? Oh baby, the name is a lie. Because look at Golduck. It's not gold, it's blue. Yeah.
You're right.
What's Game Freak thinking with these names? Anyways, in all seriousness though, let's go and talk about the perks, shall we? So Golduck has a pretty well-rounded stat total. I mean, you have base HP of 80, you have attack of 82, defense of 78, special attack of 95, special defense of 80, and speed of 85. That's pretty well-rounded, and if you spec Golduck in the right way, then it can take certain hits. Also, another main perk for Golduck is that it is really easy to breed. It is Water, A, and Field, which are two of the cheapest egg groups you can have on PokeMMO. So, that's certainly a perk for Golduck. It's easy to make, and in terms of the moveset, it has access to both Yawn and Thief. So it's really good for stone farming if you want to go ahead and farm those Geodudes or Gravelers, and you can be able to have Yawn, so that's certainly cool. I mean, Golduck can learn Hypnosis, but you don't want Hypnosis because Hypnosis is a base 60 accuracy. Yawn is 100%, so there you go. So if you have the option, take it. And you can go ahead and use Yawn with the Golduck, and that's certainly cool. And I would also like to note another perk for Golduck. So let's just say that one of those Gravelers or Geodudes are shiny, right? Well, guess what? Psyduck can learn the move Soak at level 27. So while you're EV training your Psyduck, trying to evolve it into Golduck, on the way you can be able to teach your Psyduck Soak. And why is that good? Let's just say that you bump into a shiny Geodude or Graveler, and let's just say you want to be able to use those net balls. Well, guess what? You can! Another perk for Golduck is that you can be able to learn Simple Beam. Now, you can learn Simple Beam via an egg move, courtesy of Woobat and Swoobat. And what that move can do is that move can essentially switch up your opponent's Pokemon from a problematic ability to simple. And that can allow for you to catch that Pokemon without any problems. So feel free to use that Simple Beam move however you would like to use it. Psyduck and Golduck are certainly something that you can consider, because not only is it cheap to breed, but it also has access to a pretty diversified moveset. But now we gotta talk about the drawbacks. And let me go and start off by saying that Psyduck and Golduck cannot learn False Swipe. If it can, then man, Psyduck and Golduck would have been perfect for this role. By golly. I mean, could you imagine False Swipe, then you have Yawn, and you have Soak? I mean, you essentially have all your moves right there. That's pretty awesome. And you have Thief, and you also got Simple Beam as well. I just feel like that Golduck is such a missed opportunity in terms of not learning False Swipe. Otherwise, it would have been the perfect damp Pokemon, in my opinion. Another drawback for Golduck is that it does not resist Rock-type hits. And why is that important for farming? And that's a good question. The reason why that's important for farming is because when you're farming for Everstone, Geodude and Graveler are probably going to hit you with a bunch of Rock-type moves, and it would be nice if you could be able to resist the Rock-type. You can probably spec your Golduck in HP and defense. You could probably try to weather those hits, but I would say that the next Pokemon I personally prefer, but Golduck is certainly something that is a pretty decent option. Awbaby, do you have any commentary to say about Golduck?
He's not gold.
What's your problem, Game Freak? Come on. Alright, excellent. And without further ado, let's go and dive into the Pokemon that I personally prefer for damp farming, right now. What is it? It is Poliwrath. And before I go into the slide, I just want to give a quick shout out to Yosef Salim. I hope I said your name correct. And he made this Poliwrath and he wanted it to be featured on the program, so there we go. So, Yosef Salim, if you're listening, hello. And also, this is the moveset that I personally prefer. This is the TV train set that I have there. And those are the IVs. Yosef Salim really did go all out with the IVs, so thank you. Alright, so let's go and dive into Poliwrath right now. So, what are the main perks for Poliwrath, and why do I prefer Poliwrath? And that's a good question. Look at that stat total. Base HP is 90, base attack is 95. That's pretty nice considering the fact that you're going to use Thief, and I would like to knock out the Pokemon, and Poliwrath allows for me to do that. Defense is 95, special attack doesn't even matter, special defense is 90, so that's pretty awesome, and speed is base 70. Poliwrath is a pretty bulky Pokemon, by golly. But you know what else is another perk for Poliwrath? It's the fact that Poliwrath can learn the move Thief, and it can actually take advantage of the fact that you'll be able to bump into those Geodude and Gravelers. And considering the fact that Poliwrath is part fighting, guess what that means?
He is resistant to rock.
You are correct! There we go, you took the words right out of my mouth. So Geodude and Graveler cannot hit Poliwrath with the rock-type moves. Yes, Geodude and Graveler can hit with the ground-type moves, but Poliwrath is very bulky, so even then, the Poliwrath can be able to weather those hits pretty well. And here's one more perk as well. Just like Golduck, Poliwrath has a cheap egg group, except it doesn't have field in addition to water A, but it still has water A, which is a pretty cheap egg group in the water section. And now let's go and talk about the drawbacks. Let's go and start off by saying the fact that it does not have access to a 100% sleeping mode. Yes, it has access to hypnosis, but that's a 60% accuracy. And you can go ahead and improve that accuracy by learning the move Lovely Kiss, which has a 75% accuracy, but nothing really beats 100% accuracy. Yawn I would still prefer, but maybe in a few years, if Game Freak is nice to Poliwrath, maybe they can give Poliwrath Yawn, and then PokeMMO can let us inherit that change. But I would also like to mention another drawback as well, maybe the fact that Poliwrath does not have False Swipe. That's certainly something that Poliwrath could desperately benefit from, but unfortunately it does not have access to that. So I'd like to note another drawback here, maybe the fact that Poliwrath does not learn the move Soak. So you might be asking, hey Roy, how can you use Poliwrath over Golduck? And that's a good question. That is because I'd rather resist the Geodudes and Gravelers rather than having to monkey around with the Golduck, seeing what HP and defense EVs work out for me. Poliwrath is much easier for me because I can just max HP, max attack, and speed doesn't really matter because rock-type Pokemon are typically very slow. So that's where I'm at, and baby, do you have any commentary to say about our muscle frog?
It's very muscular.
I just want to let you know that Poliwrath has so much potential, but it is such a letdown at the same time. So, Poliwrath, I'm sorry to let you down like that, but I have to be honest. And let's go and dive into the next evolution line of the Poly family. What is it? It is the Politoed. Alright, so what is the perk for Politoed? Well, just like Poliwrath, it has the exact same egg group, and that egg group is water A, and so you can be able to breed that up pretty easily. But also another perk for Politoed is this. Politoed, just like Poliwrath, can learn the move Hypnosis, and it can learn the move Lovely Kiss for better accuracy. And also, it can learn the move Thief. And also, Politoed's base stats are not really bad. I mean, base 90 HP, then you have base 75 attack, base 100 special defense, and base 75 defense. That's not really bad. You can go ahead and train that, no problem. And let me go and talk about the drawbacks. Why do you want to go for Politoed if you can go for Poliwrath, which has a higher attack stat? In my opinion, I think that Poliwrath is a superior option to compare to Politoed. Here's another drawback that I want for everybody to know about. Just like its fellow frog brother, Poliwrath, well, Politoed cannot learn the move Soak. So what does that mean? Let's just say you bump into a shiny Geodude or Graveler. You want to make life easier for yourself in terms of being able to catch the Pokemon. Well, you can't do that with Politoed. So if Poliwrath and Politoed have virtually the same perks and drawbacks, I have to ask you this. Why go for Politoed? Why not go for Poliwrath instead? Poliwrath, I would say, is a much superior option compared to Politoed. So, baby, do you have any commentary to say about our baby toad friend?
Yes, I love him. He's not trained up. Don't judge him. Or her, actually.
And before we go on to the next slide, awbaby wants to show us Politoed here, and this is a certain shiny that she caught organically. Well, congratulations to awbaby for that shiny.
Thank you, thank you.
Certainly. Viridian City. Perfect. And as for the training, I mean, don't judge awbaby, but it's not completely trained yet. But I can see that awbaby is using it as an HM slave, which I would say is actually a pretty clever way to use Politoed. So I commend you for having that moveset.
Thank you.
Certainly. And without further ado, let's go and dive into the very next Pokemon, shall we? And what is it? It is Kingdra! And what are the main perks for Kingdra? And that's a good question. It can learn Yawn!
Woohoo!
So that's certainly something that would benefit Kingdra, because Kingdra could be able to put shiny Graveler or Geodude to sleep. And another main perk for Kingdra is this. Kingdra actually has decent stats. I mean, it has HP 75, attack is the exact same as Poliwrath, 95, and that's a missed opportunity, and I can get to that later. Defense is 75, special attack is 95, special defense is 95, and speed is 85. Kingdra actually has a really nice stat layout in terms of being able to weather certain hits. That is something that Kingdra can feel good about. The fact that Kingdra can take those hits, I would say Kingdra is a pretty good candidate in terms of being able to take the beating from Geodude or Graveler. I want to mention one more perk here. Maybe the fact that Kingdra is a Water A and Dragon egg group. And why is that important? Well, Water A is a pretty cheap egg group, so you can go ahead and get your Water A breeders on the global trade link, and you can make your Kingdra no problem at all. Now you might be asking me, hey Roy, so what are the drawbacks to Kingdra? And that's a good question. Let's go and start off with the fact that Kingdra cannot learn Thief, and it cannot learn Trick, and it cannot learn any move that essentially exchanges items. Why is that bad? Because if I'm going to use Kingdra for PvE, then I really want to have an option to take items from Geodude or Graveler, or from Riggenrola, or from Boldore, or from Gigalith, whatever Pokemon there is. I want to be able to take the item away, and Kingdra just doesn't allow me to do that. That is such a bummer, considering the fact that attack stat is the same as Poliwrath, base 95. That's a lost opportunity for Kingdra, and hopefully Game Freak is nice to Kingdra, and hopefully Kingdra can get the move Thief. So, awbaby, do you have any statement to make about our Kingdra friend?
I like Kingdra. I use him to EV train.
That's good, alright. And do you use the damp equivalent, or?
No, he's just normal Kingdra.
Oh, okay. No problem. Oh, and speaking about that, thank you so much, awbaby. We actually have another drawback. And it'd be the fact that Damp is a hidden ability, so it might be very hard to get your breeders for your Horsey, Seadra, or Kingdra. If you really want your Damp Kingdra, then you might want to scour around the global trade link, because getting that hidden ability Kingdra is going to be very difficult to get in terms of breeding that up. So make sure you take that into consideration. And personally, I don't recommend Kingdra because of the very fact that it can't learn Thief or anything like that. It can't learn False Swipe. It can't even learn Soak. A sad example of Kingdra having the stats to back it up, but just not having enough moves for me to recommend it for usage in the environment. So that's the sad state of affairs for Kingdra. And awbaby, do you have any statement to make before we move on to the next Pokemon?
Nope, that's it.
Alright, no problem. And before we see a seahorse crying, let's go ahead and dive into the very next Pokemon right now. What is it? It is Quagsire. Alright, so you might be asking me, hey Roy, so what are the perks for Quagsire? And that's a good question. The fact that it's water ground, guess what that means, awbaby?
He is resistant to rock-type moves.
Perfect! Alright, there we go. And Geodude and Graveler are shaking. They're like, no, I don't want to see Quagsire. So that's certainly a perk for Quagsire. Another perk for Quagsire is that it can learn Yawn and it can learn Thief. Why is that good, you might ask? And the reason why is because you could be able to get your shiny Geodude or Graveler, and you could be able to use Thief and get your Everstone if there's an Everstone there. But if there's not an Everstone, you could be able to bump into a shiny Geodude or Graveler. You could be able to have an answer for Geodude and Graveler, and it'd be waterfalling 4 of the Geodudes and Gravelers while Geodude and Graveler tries to explode. And they can't really use a rock type on you because you're resistant to rock type. And I would also like to note that Quagsire, just like Golduck, is also easy to breed because Water A is a cheap egg group and Field is a cheap egg group. So that's one of the perks for Quagsire. Now you might be asking me, hey Roy, so how come you don't suggest a Quagsire? And here are my answers to that question. Drawback number 1 would be the fact that the speed stat is really low at base speed 35. Let's say that I'm out there in the wild, and all of a sudden there's a Geodude or Graveler, but they just so happen to have a high roll on the speed stat. I don't want to worry about, my Quagsire is base speed 35 and Geodude can go first, and I don't want to deal with that. So That's why I like that Poliwrath with the base speed stat of 70, because it's a healthy speed stat. Quagsire is an unhealthy speed stat, but I know that there are some people that prefer Quagsire because of the yawn and because of the thief combo. So there is also another drawback to Quagsire as well, and it'd be the fact that Quagsire doesn't really take grass moves too well. I mean, yeah, Poliwrath probably doesn't take them well either, but Quagsire is quad weak to grass type moves. Poliwrath can at least stand a chance, so that's something that you might want to consider when you're building your Quagsire. I would also like to mention one more drawback, and it'd be the fact that Quagsire does not have access to False Swipe. I feel like the Quagsire just underperforms in general in terms of being able to efficiently farm. Oh, and then there's another drawback that I wanted to mention as well, and it'd be the fact that it cannot learn the move Soak. So you cannot change Geodude Graveler's typing to water if you do encounter a shiny Geodude Graveler. So that's a drawback that Quagsire has as well. And then again, Poliwrath can't learn Soak either, but Poliwrath at least has a healthy speed stat, and that's why I would recommend Poliwrath over Quagsire. But feel free to use your judgment. Awbaby, do you have any commentary to make about our Quagsire?
He's alright.
Well, I mean, that smile is certainly nice, at least.
I mean, he's pretty cute. That's it. From Quagsire.
There we go. Alright, and let's go ahead and dive into our very next Pokemon right now, and it'd be Swampert. Now you might be wondering, Roy, Swampert? Why is Swampert on this list? That's because Swampert has a hidden ability of Damp. Alright, that's a drawback, but we can talk about that later. Let's go and talk about its perks. Look at that base stat roll! HP 100, attack is 110, defense is 90, special defense is 90, and speed is 60. And for anyone who likes to use Quagsire, and please, Game Freak, please, let Swampert have the move Thief. I've wanted Swampert to have the move Thief. You don't give Swampert the move Thief. Oh, I've been waiting update after update for Swampert to get Thief, and it didn't get Thief. But if it does get Thief, then I can pretty much guarantee you that I'm going to replace that Poliwrath with Swampert, because Swampert, I would say, has a lot of perks. I mean, it has a higher attack, it has a really nice HP. Yes, it's quad weak to grass, but I think that's certainly a nice trade-off considering the fact that Swampert is just that bulky. Then the base speed is not bad at base 60. I mean, Swampert is just a really good PvE Pokemon, if only it had Thief. That's all it needs, and it's so frustrating because Sceptile and Blaziken get Thief, and Swampert is just there. Swampert's like, come on guys, let me have Thief. But yet Swampert doesn't get Thief. So I can rail about that all day, but we have one more Pokemon to get to, and then we got to get to the rankings. But I do want to mention another perk as well. Yawn. Okay, so Swampert having Yawn as an egg move, at least you have Yawn as an option. And I should mention the fact that Swampert is Monster and Water A. Don't worry about the Monster Egg group, worry about the Water A, because that's how you're going to get Yawn. You can breed the female Mudkip, Marshtomp, or Swampert with a male Golduck or with a male Quagsire that has the move Yawn. So you can go ahead and let that baby Marshtomp have the move Yawn. The main perk is that it is water ground. And guess what that means, awbaby?
He's resistant to rock again.
You are correct! You are correct. There we go. So you know what that means. That means that you can essentially farm your Everstones if Game Freak gives Swampert Thief. Please, Game Freak, do it! Or give Swampert Trick or Switcher or whatever move you want to give it. But at least give it one of those three moves, please! Come on, Game Freak. Alright, anyways, enough of me railing here. Let's go and talk about our drawbacks. So, I talked briefly about this, about the fact that Swampert is quad weak to grass, and also we talked about the fact that Swampert does not have the move Thief. So I mentioned that, and also I would like to mention another drawback as well, and the fact that Swampert doesn't have False Swipe, so that's something that you might want to consider, and also the fact that in order to get Damp, then it is a hidden ability for Swampert, hence the reason why Swampert is holding a diamond in its hand. So, awbaby, do you have any statement to make about our certain Frog Hoenn starter?
I like him. I like Swampert a lot.
Alright.
I like his shiny.
Yeah, a lot of people like his shiny. Little cheeks and the purple skin. Yeah, there's some people that like that. Alright. Awbaby, are you ready to dive into the very last Pokemon?
Yes.
Alright. Without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about Jellicent. They might be asking me, hey Roy, so what are the perks of Jellicent? And that's a good question. Well, Jellicent can learn the move Trick, so that's certainly something that you can consider. And also another main perk is that its stat layout is actually really good. HP is 100, defense is 70, and special defense is 105. I would like to mention the fact that another main perk for Jellicent is Water and Ghost. So you know what that means? That means that Geodude or Graveler cannot hit Jellicent with a normal type move, which means that you avoid moves like Takedown and Double Edge. I think your main problem for Geodude and Graveler is that they have the move Double Edge in their moveset. Not only can you be able to deactivate Explosion or Self-Destruct, but what this also means that you can be able to bypass Double Edge or Takedown. So that's certainly something that you might want to consider. But the Ghost typing is really good for Jellicent because you'll be able to farm your Everstones really efficiently. But let's go and talk about those drawbacks. Have you noticed that there's a diamond being held onto by one of Jellicent's tentacles? Well, if you did notice that, well then, let me go and tell you why that is. That is because Jellicent has a hidden ability known as Damp. But we don't have that hidden ability implemented on PokeMMO yet, so that's a drawback, even if we did have that hidden ability accessible. The problem with Jellicent is that hidden ability Pokemon tend to be expensive to buy. So, not only is it expensive to buy a hidden ability Jellicent, but also, let me go and talk about another con as well. It also has a Chaos Egg Group, which is also expensive. So on top of having an expensive egg group, you also have the fact that in order to get Jellicent to have Damp, it's a hidden ability and it's extremely expensive. And at the time that's implemented, you might want to budget if you want to have a hidden ability Damp Jellicent with Trick. Now, if you notice, I did not mention a sleeping move. You know why? That's because Jellicent does not have any sleeping move at all. It doesn't have Hypnosis, it doesn't have Lovely Kiss, and it doesn't have Yawn. Which is really sad, because if only Jellicent had Yawn or any sort of sleeping move, then I'd feel like that Jellicent would be an optimal hidden ability Pokemon. Just like Swampert. Swampert and Jellicent, for completely different reasons, would be really good Pokemon, but they're just missing a component. And that's the problem with Swampert, and that's the problem with Jellicent. And I think that's the problem with Kingdra, too. All three Pokemon are missing a component. I should also mention one more drawback, and it'd be the fact that Jellicent does not have the move Soak, so that means that if I bump into a shiny Graveler or Geodude, that I cannot change the typing of Graveler or Geodude from Rock and Ground to Water type. So that is certainly a bummer for our jellyfish friend. And that is the reason why I think Jellicent is not really that optimal right now to use for the Geodude and Graveler. This is implying that Jellicent is implemented and there's no move changes. So I just want to note that. Awbaby, do you have any feedback to say about Jellicent before we go to our rankings?
I don't like Jellicent.
You don't like Jellicent. You know, Mr. Pringles is crying right now.
Sorry, Mr. Pringles, but you are lame.
Yeah, you heard it from Awbaby. Pringles is lame. And without further ado, let's go and dive into our rankings, shall we? And the number one Pokemon that I have here is Quagsire. And the reason why I have Quagsire as number one is because of the fact that it has the move Yawn, which is a 100% accurate sleeping move, and you also have access to the move Thief, which is certainly something that's pretty awesome considering the fact that you can be able to not only take your Everstones, but if there's a shiny Graveler or Geodude, you can be able to take those stones. And not only that, but also you're resistant to rock type moves, as Awbaby has mentioned before. So that's pretty awesome. And now you might be asking us, hey Roy and Baby, what's the number two Pokemon? And that's a good question. The number two Pokemon is Golduck. And the reason why Golduck is number two is because of the fact that it has a really nice base stat layout, and also it actually has more options than Quagsire. It has Yawn, which is a 100% sleeping move, as I mentioned earlier, and it has access to Soak, which is certainly nice because if you bump into a shiny Geodude or Graveler, you can be able to change the typing from Rock and Ground to Water type, which makes the net ball pretty usable there. And also, you have access to the move Thief, which you can be able to take your stones away from Geodude or Graveler. So that's certainly something that you might want to consider. And another reason why I would like to put Golduck at number two is because Golduck can be able to learn Simple Beam by an egg move, as I mentioned in the Golduck section, and that can allow you to catch any problematic Pokemon with problematic abilities. But the reason why I ranked it beneath Quagsire is because I cannot understate the fact that Golduck does not resist Geodude or Graveler in terms of Geodude and Graveler using their rock type moves, or their ground type moves, or their normal type moves. So Golduck does not resist any moves The main function with Golduck is the fact that it does have damp. It prevents self-destruct, so that's the main function of Golduck, and you can be able to add more functionality to Golduck, but it's not a matter of what moves you know, but it is what typing are you? So that's the reason why Golduck is at the ranking that it's at right now. All three of these Pokemon were running pretty close in the rankings, but I have to give the number 3 ranking to Poliwrath. And the reason why I give number 3 to Poliwrath is because Poliwrath is resistant towards Geodude and Graveler's rock-type moves, and also the fact that it has access to Thief, and it has access to Hypnosis, and it has access to Lovely Kiss if you want more accuracy, but Lovely Kiss is a battle point move, so that's something that you might want to consider. So I would probably say that Poliwrath would be a little bit more expensive in terms of patching up that sleeping move, but you're really boosting up the accuracy by plus 15%. So instead of Hypnosis is 60%, you have Lovely Kiss is 75%. Maximum amount Poliwrath can go as time of this taping. I wish Poliwrath can learn Yawn, and if that does happen, I can write in the pinned comment that Poliwrath and Quagsire switch roles, and Poliwrath can be number 1 and Quag can be number 3. So, awbaby, do you have any statement to make about Quagsire, Golduck, or Poliwrath?
Well, I personally prefer Parasect for shiny hunting higher up than the others, but I guess the other ones are valid if you're doing your Everstone hunting.
And awbaby makes a good point. I mean, if you're going to be shiny hunting, you might as well have your Parasect there, because Parasect has False Swipe and Spore. But if your main function is to just do stone farming, which I think is why you want damp anyways, if you want some extra cash, in fact, in the video title, I even wrote down money-making method, because you can be able to farm your Everstones. You can sell them in the global trade link for a good amount of money. I mean, especially in bulk. A lot of people need them for breeding. Then you can go ahead and use either Quagsire, you can use Golduck, or you can use Poliwrath. But I think that Parasect is good for your shiny hunting. Awbaby, can I ask you a question, since this is more of your expertise and not mine?
Yeah, what's up?
Okay, so would you like to pair up Golduck with Parasect so that you can be able to soak the wild shiny Pokemon, and then you can go into Parasect, which also has damp, and then you can do your False Swipe and Spore?
Yeah, it just depends on what your, I guess, well, you'd be able to just Spore anyway for Graveler and Geodude, wouldn't you?
What I'm asking is because of the netball. You want the netball to work, right?
Oh yeah, I guess if you do want to use a netball, then yeah, you could use a Pokemon instead.
And instead, you could just use a Soakmon in the lead, and then you could switch Golduck into Parasect. So
yeah.
There you go. You can have 2 damp Pokemon working side by side together. So in light of what awbaby said, we're going to go ahead and make a separate ranking here for shiny hunters. So for anyone hunting for shinies, let's go ahead and do the ranking, shall we? So number 1 Pokemon, I have to say, is Golduck, because of the very reason you can soak the Geodude and Graveler, and you can be able to switch into the number 2 Pokemon, which is actually Parasect. Both of them can work as a duo. You can do False Swipe on Geodude and Graveler, and they're no longer resistant, because you turn them from a rock and ground typing to a water typing, which makes False Swipe hit a lot harder, and the fact that you can be able to use Spore, and you can be able to put that Pokemon to sleep, and I feel like that those 2 Pokemon can work in tandem together, and then you can make the Netball work really well, because Netball tends to get a boost when you catch Geodude or Graveler when it's a water type. So I just want to note that. Golduck can learn Simple Beam via an egg move, courtesy of Swoobat and Woobat, and what Simple Beam does is that it can be able to neutralize a Pokemon's very harmful ability. So let's just say that you have a Sharpedo with the ability Rough Skin, right? And you have Golduck. You could be able to use Simple Beam, and you could be able to make it to where the harmful Pokemon with the Rough Skin ability can change to the Simple ability. And the only reason why I'm listing this as number 3 is because I see this in Petrowski's party, and I know that Petrowski tends to do shiny hunting. So I'm going to put Quagsire as number 3 for that specific reason. Otherwise, I can't really think of any other Pokemon that you would really use for shiny hunting, per se. So, awbaby, do you have any statement to make about that?
No, yeah, those are like the... I know Parasect's probably like the most used, but if you want to get used out of Silk, then yeah, you can use your Golduck.
Golduck, then switch to the Parasect, right?
Mm-hmm.
There we go. And with that, I think that concludes our damp video. So, awbaby, thank you so much for being a part of the fun.
Thank you for having me.
Certainly. And without further ado, we're going to go ahead and sign off. This is Roy Rogers Channel. Don't forget to comment and subscribe to our channel, like Content Lacy here. And this is the Roy Rogers Channel signing off. Fast, accurate, or biased, Roy Rogers News.
Yeah.